I'm Carol Harris. I'm a quilt artist and interior designer. I studied art. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Wayne University in Detroit, and in 1966. And I have been making quilts and designing interiors for all the time since 1966. I've been very fortunate to be able to work at both, have a dual career. I'm entering a stage in my life where I can devote all my time now to making art, and I'm very pleased with that. Process is really what my work is all about. And when you say from the initial idea, that we have to stop there because there is no idea. I am what is called an improvisational artist. I just jump right in and start making and let the work kind of direct me and tell me where I'm going. Now, yes, it does tell me where we're going, but I do have significant amount of control. I mean, I start the process going. I give it a start. I have, usually it starts with the color and the fabric. I am also a colorist. As you can see about the examples of my work here, I like to use very intense color. And I get my inspiration for various color schemes all around me. I may see, like driving up today, you know, the trees were beautiful. Just Michigan fall colors, all the oranges and reds, and you know, it was like the highway was on fire. It was really beautiful. And you know, I'll make a mental note of that, and they may find that scheme may find its way into a quilt or a series of quilts some days. I'm trying to get people out of their box, if you will, of what they think of as a traditional quilt. Since I am a quilt artist, meaning that my quilts are not functional, they're strictly works of art, you know, to be hung on a wall and looked at. Once I figured that out, or was comfortable with that, because I did start out by making traditional bed quilts, but once I got my arms around the fact that, you know, they were in fact non-traditional, then I was sort of freed up to go into different directions, making different shapes. And as you said, this one that is in back of us is kind of one of my newer pieces where I am not only exploring some of the other pieces. I have more of a I've been doing three-dimensional, trying to get them off, the works off of the wall or out of the flat plane. These, I'm trying to get it out of the box, okay? Again, this particular one is part of a series that I've done that are tributes to jazz musicians, or a particular musician in particular, and that's Thelonious Monk. So it kind of goes off like Monk does, like his music, if you know anything about his music at all. It goes in a lot of different directions, but you can still see the harmonies, the rhythms, and you know, these extensions on the bottom, like I said, are part of expanding, going off into the different directions. Part of what inspires or influences or informs a lot of my work is I am a student of textile arts of all cultures. If I weren't an artist, I think I would probably be a cultural anthropologist studying the work of other cultures. I have an extensive library that deals with the textiles of other cultures. you know, the obvious African textiles of all kinds, from kente cloth to Cuba to, oh geez, one very specific example that influences my work is the work of the Yoruba people in particularly Nigeria, where there is a ceremony called the Ugungun. It's Egungun, I think. And it's an annual ceremony that they have that honors the ancestors or people that have gone before. And it's part of a secret society. So there's a lot of dancing, a lot of music and movement, and people in costume that represent an ancestor, some, you know, some of the people. Part of what fascinates me about that particular ceremony is, like I said, the textiles. They have these very elaborate, I don't want to call them costumes, but it's a masquerading ceremony. And the dress that they wear is very elaborate, and it's made up of many panels that hang from, or that are stitched to the body or the base of the robe or the dress. And it's made up of pieces that are patched together similar to a quilt. But the fascinating thing for me was what happens during the ceremony when they dance. And you know, all these flaps or these panels are whirling and whirling, and they create this tremendous amount of energy, and you see what happens when the fabrics and the panels overlap. Typically, I work on more than one piece at a time, and sometimes, as I said, well, let's see, there are a couple of pieces in here that taken more than a year, because again, you know, it just took that amount of time for me to resolve the composition, or to be satisfied with what was going on there. If I could just sit down uninterrupted, work a standard 8-hour day in my studio on a piece, it might take a month. Might take a little longer than that because of the various processes involved, the cutting and the stripping, making the foundation, putting the pieces together, doing the composition, then quilting it. Which is not something that I do myself right now. I do have an assistant who works with me, and she usually does the quilting, but I have to give her specific instructions about how I want it to be quilted, what the pattern should be, and in most quilts there's several patterns that I'm using. So you know, I have to lay that out. The design and the piecing, or the making of the top, is the process that I'm most involved in, and I do that entirely, and I do that by machine. Once the top is completed, then my assistant makes the sandwich. She does that. Well, we do it both ways. Sometimes on machine, mostly by machine now, and there's some areas of different quilts that are done by hand. There was a time when I did all of it. I did the piecing of the top, and then putting it together, making the sandwich, doing the quilting, which is basically just a running stitch. If anybody, you know, if you know anything at all about sewing, it's just in and out, in and out, in and out, and in patterns. You do that in patterns, and that's basically what it is. I mean, of course, it gets more complex depending on what the pattern is, but that's all it is. Just sewing these together so that it is like a down jacket, or you know, it's not really puffy like that, especially if you're quilting it very, very tight. So that's the difference in the two processes. But I had to, a number of years ago, I had to decide, had to make the really hard decision about whether or not I should continue the whole, you know, doing the whole process, or if I should get help because it's a long process. It takes a long time. You know, at the rate that I was doing with working full time in another profession, I could only produce figure I could only produce a quilt once every 3-4 years. So I had to decide to get some assistance, and it's worked out very well. People bring different things to a museum, so I'm sure they take different things away. I just hope that it makes an impact, that they take something away, that they're moved at all. Like I said, people bring different things, and I'm always amazed at when people talk to me about what they see in my work. They see things different than what I see, but sometimes they see the same things, which pleases me too. But then they point out things that maybe I hadn't necessarily thought about. Oh yeah, I do see that happening. Things that influence me that I'm not even aware of on a conscious level. Now, I can't say that there's some that I like better than others. I enjoy working on them all, and seeing them in different venues is interesting to me too, because they look different in different places. This is a fabulous venue for showing all of them, and a number of these were in a show earlier this year in a much smaller gallery where it looked great there. But this, combined with the ceramics that are on view with this is really an interesting juxtaposition of the two. I think I'd just like to ask people to come to viewing my work or viewing any exhibition with an open mind, because I think that people have in their minds an idea of what a quilt is or what it should be, and I'm trying to change those images, and hopefully when you come take a look at it, you have a new image or a new idea about what a quilter does.